The story starts on a mountain, a really, really tall one. We're talking about the Tibetan Alps, where the air is so thin it makes your head spin and the snow never melts. It was here, huddled in a small alcove carved by the wind, that the monks found them. 2 children, no older than 5. They were identical twins, a boy and a girl, which was strange enough, but that wasn't the weirdest part. Strange swirling marks covered their skin, like tattoos made of moonlight. The monks, led by the wise elder Tenzin, knew this was no ordinary discovery. These children were different. They were something more. The monks brought them back to their monastery, a place called Dorje Ling, perched on the edge of the world. They gave the boy the name Lori and the girl the name Sona. At first the twins were a puzzle. When they were apart, Lori was a little tornado. He couldn't sit still. He'd run through the monastery halls, knocking over ancient scrolls and generally causing chaos. He was a ball of restless energy with no off switch. Sona, on the other hand, was the complete opposite. She was always tired. She'd fall asleep in the middle of a meal, her head drooping into her bowl of sampa. She moved like she was walking through honey. It was Elder Tenzin who figured it out. He noticed that whenever the twins were separated, they were imbalanced. One day he brought them together in the main meditation hall. He gently took their hands and placed them together, palm to palm. The moment their skin touched, something incredible happened. A brilliant light erupted from them. Lori glowed with a deep electric blue, and Sona shone with a vibrant, warm magenta. The light filled the entire room, humming with a power that felt ancient and endless. The monks stared in awe. This was not just a trick of the light. This was magic. From that day on, everything changed. As long as they held hands, Lori and Sona were transformed. They weren't just balanced, they were whole. They didn't need to sleep. They didn't need to eat as much. Their minds became sharp as a shard of ice. They could memorize entire libraries of scrolls in a single night, reading side by side, their combined energy fueling their focus. They could run for miles without getting tired, their footsteps perfectly in sync as they raced through the mountain passes. The restless boy and the sleepy girl were gone. In their place were 2 halves of a powerful single being. Life in the monastery became a long, strange training session. Elder Tenzin wasn't scared of their power. He was fascinated by it. He taught them about yin and yang, the ancient concept of balance. Lori, he would say, his voice calm and steady. You are the rushing river, the storm. You are yang. Then he would turn to Sona. And you, Sona, are the still lake, the quiet earth. You are yin. He explained that apart they were incomplete, like a day with no night or a moon with no sun, but together they were a perfect circle, a complete whole. Their power wasn't just a party trick, it was a responsibility. Their training was more than just reading books. The monks taught them to control their energy. They learned that by focusing their thoughts, they could share their power with others. If a monk was tired after a long day of chores, Sona could place a hand on his shoulder while holding Lori's hand. A gentle wave of magenta energy would flow into him, and his exhaustion would vanish. He'd feel rested and renewed. It was a gift, a way to help. They became the secret healers of the monastery, their strange ability a blessing to the small community that had taken them in. But they also learned about the other side of their power. Lori discovered that he could do the opposite. If someone was angry or agitated, he could draw that frantic energy away. With Sona anchoring him, he could touch someone and pull their chaotic feelings into himself, where their combined power would calm it, like pouring water on a fire. They could even put people to sleep, a deep and dreamless sleep, just by focusing their combined will. The monks taught them to use this ability with great care. Power, Elder Tenzin warned, could be used for good or for ill. The choice was always theirs. Of course, it wasn't always easy. Being a teenager is hard enough. Being a teenager who glows is even harder. Sometimes they would argue, like all siblings do. Lori would get frustrated and let go of Sona's hand. Instantly, the connection would break. He'd start pacing, full of nervous energy, unable to think clearly. Sona would yawn, her eyelids drooping, feeling the familiar wave of exhaustion wash over her. They couldn't stand being apart for long. It was a physical ache, a reminder that they were two halves of the same soul. They always found their way back to each other, their hands locking together again, the familiar glow returning. As they grew from teenagers into young adults, the monastery started to feel small. They had read every scroll, memorized every chant, and explored every mountain path within a day's run. They loved their home and the monks who had raised them, but a new feeling began to stir within them: curiosity. They had read about the world outside, a world of bustling cities, strange technologies, and billions of people who had never seen real magic. Laurie, ever the impulsive one, wanted to see it all. He dreamed of skyscrapers and oceans, of things that were completely different from their quiet mountain life. Sonar was more hesitant. The monastery was safe. It was predictable. The outside world, from what she had read, was chaotic and loud. It was full of people who wouldn't understand them. What would they think of two people who glowed? Would they be seen as freaks? Or worse, as something to be captured and studied? She worried about the dangers, but she also saw the longing in her brother's eyes. She knew they couldn't stay on their mountain forever. They were a part of the world, even if they had been hidden from it for so long. The decision was made together, as all their decisions were. They stood before Elder Tenzin, their hands clasped tightly. "We need to go," Laurie said, his voice firm. "We need to understand our place in the world." Sonar nodded in agreement, her magenta glow pulsing softly. "We will be careful," she added, her voice quiet but strong. Elder Tenzin looked at them, his ancient eyes filled with a mixture of pride and sadness. He had known this day would come. He gave them his blessing, a few supplies, and one final piece of advice. "The world is imbalanced. It needs what you have. Do not forget who you are, or who you are together." Leaving Doryeling was the hardest thing they had ever done. They walked down the mountain path, turning back one last time to see the monastery silhouetted against the rising sun. Then they turned and faced the horizon. The world that awaited them was a sensory overload. The first time they saw a car, Laurie stared with wide-eyed wonder, while Sonar flinched at the noise. The cities were a whirlwind of sights, sounds, and smells. People rushed everywhere, their faces stressed and tired. The twins felt the chaotic energy of the crowds like a physical force, a constant hum of anxiety and exhaustion that made their own balanced power feel even more unique. The outside world was a challenge. Without the quiet structure of the monastery, they had to rely on each other more than ever. Laurie's impulsive nature got them into trouble more than once. He'd want to explore a dark alleyway or trust a stranger who seemed friendly. It was Sonar's calm, steady presence that kept him grounded. She would squeeze his hand, her magenta light a silent warning, reminding him to think before he leaped. She was his anchor, his moment of pause, preventing his river of energy from flooding its banks and causing a disaster. In return, Laurie was Sonar's shield. The constant noise and frantic pace of the city overwhelmed her. Sometimes she would feel her energy draining away, the urge to sleep pulling at her even while holding her brother's hand. It was Laurie's bright, fearless energy that pushed them forward. He would find them a quiet park or a rooftop where they could recharge, away from the chaos. He encouraged her to be brave, to see the beauty in the new world instead of just the fear. He was her spark, her motivation to keep moving when all she wanted to do was stand still. They discovered that Elder Tenzin was right. The world was deeply imbalanced. They saw people everywhere who were like they used to be when they were apart, restless and anxious like Laurie, or exhausted and weary like Sonar. They started using their gift in small ways. A touch to a stressed businessman on a subway, leaving him feeling calm and clear-headed. A shared moment with a tired mother in a park, giving her the energy to play with her child. They didn't seek fame or attention. They moved through the world quietly, two glowing figures leaving a trail of balance in their wake. Their journey was just beginning. They didn't know what their ultimate purpose was, or if they even had one. All they knew was that they had each other. Their bond, forged in the snow of the Tibetan Alps and tempered in the halls of a monastery, was their greatest strength. They were Laurie and Sonar, the storm and the calm, the yin and the yang. As long as they held hands, their light would never go out, and they could face anything the wide, chaotic world threw at them. Together, they were infinite.